Is there anyone else who would like to talk under public comment?
Hi, my name is Michelle Conlon. I'm here to read a statement from my daughter, Angel. I've been asked the question how my daughter's death has impacted my life. How does one answer that? To never be able to look into her beautiful eyes again. To never hear her exasperated voice say, "Oh, Mom," that's what she called me. To never be able to talk over the problems of the day, how cute some boy is, the crazy TV show that's on, or the newest joke going around. The simple things you miss the most. I will never be mother of the bride, going crazy, helping her pick out a wedding dress. I will never see her smiling at me as she introduces me to her baby. During the last 3 years, I get out of bed in the morning, go through the motion of the day, just trying to remember to breathe. I look for signs of her everywhere, seeing clouds shaped like angel wings, a silly grasshopper sitting in the grass reminds me of her. I focus on just living, but most days I sit staring, not at anything in particular, just trying to figure out how this happened to her and why no one has been held accountable for her death. I go about daily chores, buying groceries, going to school, shopping, and I see the men that hurt her just walking the streets as though nothing important has happened. I must remember to breathe. How can someone be responsible for another person's death and go on being happy, acting as if nothing has happened, going to college, becoming engaged, moving place to place? I guess I should stop here and tell you the story of my angel and how her life came to a horrible end. The date and time I last spoke to my daughter Angel is imprinted on my mind forever, and the sweet sound of her voice lives within my soul. Her story begs to be told. Angel was a naive 23-year-old young lady that was always reaching out to someone in need and never asked for anything in return. Angel was on disability and had a payee, and she didn't have the ability to judge danger. Trusted everyone that she came across, and she was very naive. Her kindness was often mistaken as weakness, and people took advantage of her. Angel's compassionate nature and willingness to help people is what I believe led to her demise. Angel introduced me to a man much older to her who was a supposed friend of hers just 2 weeks before I'd hear his voice again, and he made my skin crawl. I answered the phone on 9/4/2011, and on the line was the man I knew was trouble. He told me my daughter was breathing but would not wake up. I melted into terror and her life flashed before my eyes. I knew I had to pull it together for the sake of my daughter, and I told him to call 911, and I rushed to the nearest hospital where she arrived. When arriving at Banner Lassen Hospital, I was approached by 2 young males. One of them told me Angel was unresponsive. They had found her on the bathroom floor unconscious and moved her to a bed. One of the men was visibly shaking, crying uncontrollably, and he walked over to the wall where he hugged himself. I was overwhelmed by fear and horrified to see my daughter in the emergency room. The nurse was icing her hand, trying desperately to get a vein for the IV. I saw numerous bruises on her lifeless body, as well as drawings and words in ink I knew Angel would not willingly have allowed to be put on her skin, given the matter. I could only imagine the horror that she went through before getting medical attention. The man who notified me stood by her bedside as though he was guarding her, and his possessiveness was bizarre, and his behavior was erratic. I looked into his glassy eyes, and he seemed under the influence of something. He began telling me of the kinds of drugs that would later be found in my daughter's blood work. The medical staff was working on Angel, but by the time she was in a deep coma. Within the hour, she was airlifted to a renowned hospital in Reno. In 7 days, my daughter would be gone forever. The police did not investigate the events which led to my daughter being hospitalized. My motherly instinct told me that my daughter had been drugged involuntarily while she was in that man's home. The 2 other men know what truly happened that night, but are not revealing the truth. They haven't even been interviewed. I am enraged at the way the hospital staff treated my daughter. They disregarded her as though she was a junkie that overdosed and had no desire to live. I am sickened, saddened, and consumed by grief. Everything seems surreal. I didn't want the man I felt responsible for Angel's death to be anywhere near her. Renowned policy is that anyone can be in the ICU, and until Angel woke up and told him to leave, I couldn't get him out. During his stay, he continued to write on Angel. At one point, he kicked her ventilator plug out of the wall, claiming he was looking for something, and he didn't plug it back in. Finally, after causing additional trouble, the hospital banned him. When Angel was admitted to the hospital, she had bruising all over her. I questioned the staff about this, and the pictures were taken of bruising. What happened to the pictures? I questioned a rape kit be done and was told it would be. What happened to the test? The care flight nurse came to me and asked about the bruising around Angel's neck. She said she would file a report on what she observed. What happened to the report? My daughter Angel passed away on 9/10/11. Almost 3 years later, I'm still fighting to have her case investigated and her reputation restored. Let me correct that. My daughter didn't just pass away. I had 7 agonizing days watching her struggle for every breath, knowing it wasn't going to get any better. On day 7, and after much praying and soul searching, I made the hardest decision of my life. Life support was stopped, and several hours later, Angel took her last breath. Angel described herself as having a poetic soul, and I wish for her to be treated with the respect she is so deserving by having poetic justice. The men that were with her at the time of the incident need to be held accountable. They left Angel unconscious 16 hours before calling 911. When I received a copy of her medical records at Banner Lassen, I discovered there were multiple drugs in her system. There were 2 date rape drugs, extreme high doses of benzodiazepine, marijuana, methadone, ketamine, also known as angel dust. I know she would not have taken these on her own. After Angel passed away, I went to Susanville Police Department and spoke to Officer Melito on 3 separate occasions. He informed me that he had closed my daughter's case because he didn't feel there was anything to investigate. He also informed me he was still investigating a case that was several years old and he didn't have time to investigate hers. Officer Melito told me to give up. The investigation was not going to happen. Officer Melito claimed that when he arrived at the apartment after receiving the 911 call, Angel was found on the bed, unresponsive, and the paramedics were working on her to move her to the hospital. There was no one in the apartment but Angel. The person who had called 911 had also fled the apartment. At no time was it ever considered to stage the apartment for an investigation. He didn't even care enough to see why she was alone. He claimed she was talking and laughing with him. It wasn't a police matter. When we got to the hospital, the doctor said she was hour 16 into a drug overdose, and there was no way she could have been talking or laughing with Officer Melito. When we told Officer Melito of a conversation we had with one of the men who had been there, his comment back to me was that he personally knew this man, Officer Melito, and he didn't believe this man would ever do anything to hurt Angel. There were medical records and comments from different people that the men I talked to. I believe my daughter was held against her will, given drugs to subdue her, raped, beaten, and left to die on the bathroom floor. The medical records show that there was water in her lungs so much they were unable to intubate her at first. When I asked how that happened, one of the men claimed she was put in the shower because she wouldn't wake up. To have that much water in your lungs, you'd have to be held underwater. When I asked why they didn't call 911 sooner to get help, one of the men claimed he knew more about paramedics and she was going to die anyways, so there was no reason to call. Why did the police officers never look into this? Why am I still having people say to me 3 years later they never heard Angel's death? Do you have any idea how painful it is to look in the paper and read about missing dogs and think no one cared enough to write about my daughter? I was told a year ago that the case had been reopened and Detective Warner would be working on the case. I went and talked to Detective Warner, and I do commend him for at least putting out some effort. However, it's been a year and nothing or little's been done. I went to the DA's office when it first happened, and I was told he could do nothing, and I was referred to victim witness. That was a dead end from the beginning. I'm sure after hearing my story, you're thinking I'm out to get something. The only thing I've ever asked for is justice for Angel. I don't ever want to pick up the paper or read on the internet that someone else's child has been victimized not only from the attacker, but also from law enforcement. If nothing else, maybe we need to look at the way first responders handle a crime scene. Should just one person be allowed to make decisions as to whether a possible murder has taken place? Because of Officer Melito not staging the scene and no investigation done, the 3 men were able to go in and clean and throw away all the evidence in the case. Would the City of Susanville Police Department like to conceal the truth behind my daughter's death? I've asked myself that question so many times. How can there be so many mistakes, accidents, or just plain stupidity in the case not to have it revealed? It's a problem we need more detectives on the force. It's a problem we need to have our officers better trained on the job. It's a problem we need to hire young men who have no, it's a problem that we hire young men that have no business wearing a uniform. It's a problem that people don't care enough for one another. It's a problem that the city police and the sheriff's department don't work together enough. I don't know the answer to any of these questions, but I hope if nothing else comes from this meeting, it's that each and every one of you stop for a minute and think about the next young person that's going to be killed and pray it isn't someone close to you. Angel is loved. She's a beautiful young woman. She has a mom, dad, brother, aunts, uncles, grandparents who love her. We feel her loss every day.
Thank you.
Iona McCain. I wrote a master's degree regarding abuses that happened to women in 1976. And all I can say is that Angel truly is an angel now. And I worked down at Vacaville. And I also worked in a place called Stepping Stones, residential care for girls in Reading, incorrigible runaways, and wards of court. I've seen both sides of the story. And I think when things are left undone and are kept a secret, then justice can never be done, completed. So I would like to speak on her behalf and Angel's behalf, and that is bring this crime out in the open. It happened here in Susanville and ended up in her death in Nevada. To leave things undone means that this person is still out, or persons, I don't know who they are, and they will do it again. Thank you very much.
Eileen?
Iona McCain, thank you. I just wanted to say that after hearing this story about Angel and my education in the field of corrections and working in social welfare and that sort of thing, it seems like they were asking for some kind of help here. And I just wanted to make I just wanted to make a plea that we remember that there was another serious stabbing that took place here in Susanville, and I believe it was John Abbott's son. And they didn't make a police report at the city and said they couldn't really follow up on it. The boy survived, but it's just the thing is there is this unfinished investigation that is really serious. And I would like to know if I could ask the council over here, I know that when it comes to murder, that it's always open if it's unresolved. Right? Isn't the case always open if the murder is unresolved? And there's no statute of limitations, I guess is a better
I will
word.
confirm that there is no statute of limitations on murder. That is quite correct. Under 800 at second penal code. Excuse me. Apologize. Yes, that's correct. We're talking about the death of Angel Simon.
Yeah,
And we're talking about a case which
it's closed, right?
I don't think that necessarily to be the case, but certainly something that the Office of the District Attorney was hoping for more information from the police department. The police department, which is an entity of the city of Susanville. I'm not certain that this entity necessarily has oversight on that department, and maybe that's more properly addressed at the city council. I'm not trying to shut off to a different direction the discussion, but there is a significant issue in that case in terms of the provability. That's my recollection.
But the sheriff was involved in the
Sheriff's always involved in homicide
county.
cases because he's the coroner.
Okay.
Yes.
So if
In the
if
county
they
or the
want to
city.
bring this up, they have to bring up the finances themselves. In other words, I mean, in other words, if you're going to pursue a criminal case, you know, the person, the parents, they're not getting any help here. This mother is not getting any help here, you know. And you got to bring it open so we all know in our community that this has been unresolved, because those are individuals, whomever they may be, are at large. You know, so that's something we have to follow up on.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I
And
recall
I'm just saying,
specific
is
in
it
the
her financial, it's up to her to financially go after it, right?
I'm not certain I understand your comment
Well,
about
who pays
financially
for
going
the
in.
criminal lawyer to go fight the case?
Who defends
Who
a
defends-
suspect or a defendant?
Yeah, it would be the
It's
parents.
No, typically, a person charged with a crime that can't afford to pay for their own defense is afforded one pursuant to not Brown v. Board of Education, but Gideon versus Wainwright case. So public defenders are appointed here all the time to represent indigent defendants.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answers your question there or not.
Yes, it does answer it.
Okay.
And I thank you, because I really feel that the community, remember we had a 60-minute show that had Alaskan County on it regarding the prison town. It wasn't necessarily the best image, you
Yes.
know, type thing.
Yes.
And I think if we can clean some of these things up, it might be better for all of us to be aware of it.
Well, what I can say is I did have long and detailed conversations with Mr. Warner, Detective Warner from the police department on this very case, and frustrations associated with its provability. What I will say is that I remain an open book to Ms. Montgomery. If she wants to get any historical reference on that case from me, I'm a phone call away. I pledged last week when she was appointed continuing support for her in her new job, and those aren't just words. Whether it results in a criminal filing or not, the mother of Angel, who was here today, and I apologize, I don't have her name at the tip of my tongue, she deserves time.
Resolve.
She deserves time.
That's it. Yes.
Understand.
And Stacy Montgomery, whatever her statement was when she was running, is that she wants to get into resolving these drug issues. This is a drug issue. It's basically, you know, a date rape type of activity, and it's very serious. We've got to protect our young people, boys or girls or anybody. And I feel that, that could we be sued as a county? That was another thing on my mind, if this thing isn't pursued properly.
Well, anybody can sue anybody at any time
Yes,
for anything.
right.
We are
I
well
know
experienced in that.
Okay.
But what I will say is whether or not that could be sustained by a court. You know, I mean, if the persons involved in the decision-making process are involved in the course and scope of their duties, they enjoy some immunity from the decisions. And I've been one of the persons that has enjoyed that immunity from time to time. So, you know, are we exposed for not pursuing, are we civilly
Yes.
liable for not pursuing a
Suing.
criminal case? My initial reaction is probably not. But,
I'm not pursuing a criminal case.
right.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
don't thank you. You know, I just was made aware of this
Yes, sir.
issue last week. Somebody reached out to me. I wasn't aware that the mother was going to come today, but it's yeah. I mean, it was. It's sure. They sent me some YouTube links and devastating. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was crazy. I mean, there's so many things, you know, that you see in the paper that seem to be so like insignificant and trivial, and then I couldn't believe like this thing that happened right here in Susanville. I'm sure it must have been in the newspaper, but it certainly wasn't front page news.
Wasn't even on the police jeep.
Yeah, I mean, anyways, thank you. Thanks.